Unit 2, we're going to be talking about how you go about actually finding the deal and how to actually automate the deal finding process. So guys, we've just covered how to de-risk the deal, and now we're on to the next section, which is a lot more exciting, and we're going to be covering on the subject of finding the deal and how we can actually automate the deal finding process. So I've got 2 bullet points here. I'm just going to read these out. 2 main sources of deals, but many mediums to get the deals from these sources. Both these sources are actually equally important, and we must maintain what I call the pillars of the machine that brings in the leads slash the deals that we're after. And if you guys don't know what leads are, it basically means all the actual warm people or inquiries coming in of people that actually potentially want to sell, and we want to increase that amount so that we can filter out the ones that are best going to work for us in terms of making a healthy profit. Now, the main 2 sources that we're going to be talking about is firstly real estate agents, and secondly private sellers, and how we can build the pillars up of both so we can ensure that it's almost done like an automated process. So firstly, we're going to cover the real estate agent source of how we get deals. And guys, we have to understand the different types of agents we can actually come across. So we did briefly talk about this already in week 2 in regards to a buyer's agent. But what we're going to do now is go over in detail the main differences of what a listing agent is versus what a buyer's agent is. So firstly, to look over what a listing agent is, the listing agent is the person that is working directly with the vendor that has direct responsibilities to actually sell the property for the vendor. So I've got a few bullet points that I'll just read over so you guys can understand what a listing agent does and what the responsibilities are. And that's, a listing agent directly works for the seller slash vendor, has the best interest of the seller and tries to get the best price for the vendor, has the option to work with other agents in the same agency or other agencies should other agents have a buyer for the property, will try and maximize results for the vendor regardless of where the offers come from, and lastly, the listing agent actually gets more commission if they sell it themselves versus sharing the listing with another agent that has found the buyer, and especially another agent from a different agency. So that's the main kind of point of what a listing agent is responsible for and what they do. So now we're going to be talking about a buyer's agent, and a buyer's agent is basically someone that's going to be a part of your power team and actually a key player at that. So let's just go over the points of how they're going to be different to the listing agent that we just talked about. So a buyer agent works for the buyer and find deals that will work for you. A buyer's agent does not have the original listing from the seller and will be working with the listing agent to try to get a price that works for you. Now let's just stop and kind of reread that second point there. So the buyer's agent doesn't have the original listing, but will still try work with the listing agent to get the price that works for you. Now you'll remember on the previous slide where we talked about the listing agent that even if the listing agent is working with a different agent, the listing agent will still try get the top price for the vendor. So, there's a little bit of a conflict here that the listing agent will try to get the top price for the vendor, but at the same time, the buyer's agent's working for yourself and trying to push that price down to get the contract sealed up and you can actually go out and purchase the property. Now, basically, with this being the case, there has to be some give and take. And essentially, if the listing agent has listed the property for a very long time and they haven't sold it, well, guess what? If the buyer agent has come in with a strong buyer, like myself, that is going to be a cash buyer in this instance, regardless of where the price is at, the listing agent has to still try to convince the vendor to accept it because they haven't got any other offers. And if the vendor is truly interested in wanting to sell the property, then they will seriously consider the offer, and the listing agent, the best thing they would be able to do is try to get the vendor to actually counter the offer a little bit higher, but still my buyer's agent will actually try to get the best price for me. Because if the price doesn't actually work for me, well, guess what? We go on to the point number 3, which is the buyer's agent only actually gets commission if I successfully buy it. So unlike the listing agent who can sell it to whoever, and when they sell it, they're going to get commission, the buyer agent is actually actively looking out for properties for you that you've given the criteria for and the price bracket, and only when you actually buy it, that commission gets split between the buyer's agent and the listing agent. So, it's in the best interest of the buyer's agent to really work hard and really kind of talk with the listing agent and say, my buyer is serious, please let's get together a deal. I know you're after the top price for your listing agent, but at the end of the day, you've listed it for quite some time, you haven't sold it, you're better off getting half commission than no commission at all. And if the listing agent is smart, they'll consider that option and work with the buyer's agent. And although the price might not be the highest price for the vendor, if they truly do have the intention of selling it, they will consider it. And the last thing the listing agent wants to do is leave the property listed for so long and it doesn't sell up to the point that the vendor gets frustrated at the listing agent and pulls it away from the market altogether anyway. So getting half of something is still better than getting nothing of a bigger amount, if that makes sense. The last point I've got there is the buyer agent has interest in ensuring you make a profit so they can continue actually having repeat business with you. And I've got a wide range of buyers agent that constantly look out for properties on my behalf because they know I'm cash ready, I can go out and buy, I'm not a time waster, and they're going to keep sending me deals. And in fact, the Rada Street deal that I mentioned earlier on this week's lesson in regards to de-risking the deal was actually a deal given from my buyer's agent, and he contacted me and said, look, this one has a limb issue, but I know you guys will be able to resolve it. It's not a hard issue, and once we resolve it, you're going to be able to make some good money on the other end. Equally, in terms of the property, it's in very tidy condition. It just needs a cosmetic makeover and you're good to go. So that was a deal actually brought through by my buyer's agent. So I'm really thankful that I have a big network of buyer's agent that I've been able to build up over time, and you guys will be able to do that as well. And when the buyer's agent is sending you deals, it's the difference of you earning, possibly another couple of $100,000 over the year versus not having that connection with them at all. And on that particular deal, on the Rada Street deal where that buyer agent sent me through the information, I ended up, again, I think we bought it for about $390, $389, somewhere around that vicinity, and we sold it close to about $460 odd. So very healthy profits, and that's why it's so important to have buyer agents working with you. So now, guys, we understand the different type of real estate agents that work on the open market. And it's also important to understand the different methods real estate agents use to sell property. So I've got a list of different methods they use to sell the property, and I'm just going to cover this briefly because I do touch on this more when it comes to week 5, where we talk about offloading of the property. So just to go over this quickly, you've got asking price, which is a set price the agent is demanding. So when you go out and see a property might be listed for $400,000, $999,000. A negotiation is a property where there's actually no price listed at all, and it says price by negotiation. So you're basically going in blind. You don't know what the vendors are after, and you have to kind of talk to the agent and work out what you might think would work for the vendor. An auction is selling via a open forum, on a specific date or time that the buyers all come together and they bid, and generally the highest bidder will win if the reserve has been met that the vendor has set out. The next one is a tender. So tender is a deadline to make offers so the vendor can review all offers and go with the best one. Now, a tender is a very tricky one because it's kind of like an auction, but everyone goes in blind, not knowing what the other person is actually putting forth. So a tender is really something where you need to put your best foot forward, because you have to keep in mind that the other buyers that are also putting in offers, their offers might be higher than yours. But equally, this one's a little tricky because you don't want to overpay for the property either. So it's finding that middle ground and finding that number that works for you and sticking to your numbers and your guns and not going over that budget regardless of what you might think other party or other buyers are going to be doing. Last one, we've got mortgagee auction, which is the same process as a auction, but the only difference is sometimes you might actually have restricted information about the property and or limited access. And I've been to several mortgagee auctions, off which the vendors wouldn't actually allow us to enter the property, and again, you're going in blind. You haven't done any due diligence on the property. You may or may not have a building report provided by the real estate agent. If you want to go get a building report, you may not be able to do it. If you wanted to test for meth, unfortunately, you might not be able to do it. So when you're at mortgagee auction, you have to be very careful because you could be buying a dodgy property. I don't believe I've actually picked up anything at mortgagee just yet in the past kind of 4 years I've been doing property trading, but I know a few property traders that I'm connected with have brought from Mortgagee, and sometimes they can be really good earners because you are going in blind. Sometimes there's actually very little competition because people don't like the idea of buying something they don't know what they're dealing with, and sometimes you come out a lot luckier on the other end. So if you've got the budget to actually spare for something that's, I consider, kind of rolling the dice, then it's something you may want to look into, but certainly not something I would encourage you to do when you're starting out property trading. And again, something for the more advanced, when you actually have that experience up your sleeve. So as I mentioned a little earlier, there are a lot of different mediums to gain the leads or the deals through the main two sources, which we've talked about as real estate agents, and we haven't yet talked about private vendors. But let's look at the different mediums on how you can obtain deals through real estate agents. So we're going to be covering each of these major bullet points in detail, but just to go over them briefly, we've got buyer's agent, which we've already discussed. We've got different online mediums such as realestate.co.nz, trademe.co.nz, and all the different agency websites that are around your local area, such as Barfoot's, Harcourts, Ray White, and Duncan, Bailey's. There's so many agencies out there, guys, that you guys will have to start trawling through the websites to look through these deals. And also, there's a very free medium that you can go out and kind of apply yourself, which is open homes and networking. So we'll be covering each of these in details over the next few slides. So having a buyer's agent is a great medium on how you can generate more leads or generate more deals. And here are the bullet points that I'm going to cover on how you can actually automate it and make it work like clockwork, so you don't have to always put your attention towards your buyer's agent. So what you want to do is you want to build a list of buyer agents that will work for you. And when you're starting out, you might just want to work with maybe 2 or 3, or maybe 3. I'd say anywhere between 5 agents is a good number to kind of work with and always kind of meet up. Slowly you can kind of build that to a bigger buyer's agent database, but for now maybe you might want to just work with kind of 5 main buyer's agents that really understand what you do and how you can actually help them as well. Because keep in mind, a buying agent only gets paid when the deal goes through successfully. So what you want to be doing is you want to be meeting face-to-face regularly, once every fortnight or at least once a month. I recommend the fortnight option. Or if you can't do that, you want to at least call every week or once a fortnight. And the reason why you want to do that is because deals are found in conversation, and you always want to be in front of the real estate agent, or the buyer's agent constantly, because they're going to forget you if you're not always in front of them. They work with so many different other buyers that they're going to start sending deals to other people if they forget about you. And I've actually had this happen where I call up one of my buyer's agent after not getting in contact with them for a very long time, and I say, well, what's new? What's hot? Do you have any deals for me? And they say, oh, actually, I forgot to call you. There was actually a deal that I've just sold to another investor, and they're going to make a ton of money on this, and they're going to go do it up and put it back on the market, but I forgot about you. And that's the problem, because you have to understand a buyer's agent is connected with so many different sellers and so many different buyers that they're not going to constantly be updating you with things that work for you if you're not constantly reminding them that they should be sending that to you, right? So meet face-to-face once every fortnight, or at least once a month, or at least call them once a week or every fortnight. Now, how do I kind of automate this process for myself? Because even doing that sometimes can be a bit tedious and time-consuming. So there's actually tools that I use to automate text setups, so I can actually reach out to agents every week. And it's basically either myself setting up an automatic text to go out to these agents using certain software to actually say, hey, how's it going? Do you guys have anything for me this week? It can be as simple as that. And it gets to the point, you're not trying to chit chat, you're not kind of doing any small talk or anything like that, and you're getting to the point of saying, do you have any deals for me that are worth trading? And if so, I want to see it. Another way you can do it, as opposed to the text system, is also on emails. Everyone's connected to emails these days, and depending on the agent you're working with, if they're more traditional or if they're more up to date with the technology, then text works really well, but also emails work well because they can check it in their own time. So again, you can use automated email software such as MailChimp, and there's a whole bunch of other softwares you can actually look online where you just write in Google automate email, and you'll be able to pick the software that works for you. And basically that sets up all the emails in advance, and I can actually schedule all these emails in one day to go out for the next 6 months, where an email goes out every fortnight. And that's running in the background, so anytime I jump on my computer, on a Monday or throughout the week or whenever, I get all these emails coming in from all these different agents saying, Peter, this deal would work for you because such and such, or this one would work really well because you could do this up and you only need to spend 10 grand and it's going to be worth X on this other end. And that's how the agents know how I work. I've worked with them long enough, and we've built up a relationship that they actually tell me and say, well, Peter, if you buy it for this price, this is ideally what I think we can get the property across for. Having a chat with the listing agent. Also, I've checked out the property, and the renovations isn't going to be extensive. It's only going to cost you from X range to X range, and after you spend this, you should be expected to sell it for this range on the other end. And that's very, that's very concise. It gives me all the information I need, and then for me, all I need to do is kind of filter out through the emails on the deals that I think would work for me, and I give them a call. I go out and see it, and then boom, you've got next thing you know, you've got pen to paper. I've put down an offer, and it might get accepted, it might not, and once it gets accepted, I start the process and I renovate it, or I find another buyer and I realize the profits. And that's how important a buyer's agent can actually help you, when it comes to looking for deals for you guys, and you really want to automate this process. So the next medium we can look for to help us get more leads or more deals, also associated with the real estate agent source, is actually looking through online through the main websites, which are trademe.co.nz, realestate.co.nz, and through the different agency websites. Now, as I believe, and don't quote me on this, I believe the listing normally comes onto the agency websites first before they actually hit TradeMe and realestate.co.nz. And it's been some cases where I've heard stories that people have seen an asking price on the Barfoot & Thompson page or Ray White page, for example, and they call the agent and put forth an offer very quickly because of the asking price, and the asking price is met, the property gets sold, and it gets sold before it even hits TradeMe or realestate.co.nz, or when it actually finally hits TradeMe and realestate.co.nz, when buyers start calling through, the agent responds by saying it's already sold, unfortunately. So, I've heard stories of that, of it being listed on the agency websites first. So that's something you guys can keep an eye out for. And the great thing about all these websites is you can actually, write in your preferences or put in your email, and they can actually start sending you properties anytime your criteria of property comes up or your price range of properties actually come up. And I've made a second point here to say that you guys need to trawl through each of these websites for at least 1 hour a day until you're actually in the position of scale. And if you don't have an hour a day, that's fine. Just spend a little bit of time where you're actually trawling and getting used to this, because there's so many deals available just by looking on these websites that if you look long enough, look hard and long enough, you will come across a deal where you can make a good profit margin as well. And many people do it without a budget. They don't spend any money on advertising. I know other traders that purely just look online and actually just work with real estate agents, and they're still able to make 6-7 figures a year by doing this, by just this online medium strategy. And another thing I want to talk about is each agency has different rules, and some agencies may not like working with other agencies. So that actually gives you an advantage, because if a property isn't selling, the agent might want to try get you a better price. A listing agent might want to get you a lower price because they'd rather sell it at a lower price because their commission is still higher than selling at a higher price, splitting the commission with another agent. So just keep that in mind, because this. I don't know which agencies that have all these different rules, or which agencies work together, which don't. But I do know that it's the case that some agencies don't like working with each other, and you can actually use this to your advantage, because if the property's been listed for quite some time, you can approach the listing agent and try get a better deal, because they're going to be better off selling it to you at a cheaper price than selling it at a higher price, splitting the commission with another agent or agency. Now, I know that's not looking for the best interest for the vendor when the listing agent is supposed to do that, but you know, and unfortunately at the end of the day, the rules and regulations, this is how it's set for the agencies, and at the end of the day, the vendors actually get hit the most. But unfortunately, you know, we're not doing anything wrong. All we're doing is working towards the rules that they've set out, and you know, sometimes it's a win for us, sometimes it's not. So you got to try your luck. And another thing I want to point out is that each agency actually specializes in different things, and you know, it's up to you guys to actually do your research to figure out which agency specializes in certain areas. But I know that, you know, for example, Bailey's is more specialized in commercial building. And you know, I actually had a real estate friend, another investor friend of mine that does property trading, both residential property trading and commercial property trading. And you know, he very much started residential property trading first, and he's been doing it a lot longer than me. But nowadays he's actually more focused on the commercial side of things, because he's built up enough capital for him to actually go into that avenue. And you know, that may be something I'm looking into, but at this stage, I find residential property trading something I'm very good at, something that makes sense to me, and you know, that I can do very well at. So, you know, something I may look into into the future. But the reason why I brought that up is because he actually bought a property through Harcourts that was actually a commercial building, and it was massively underpriced. But the Harcourt agent or Harcourts themselves, they didn't know that, because that's something that they don't specialize in. And you know, it's often the case that as property traders or investors, we can often see the opportunity where the agents and the vendors can't. And you know, that's not really exploitation or anything like that. It's just our craft, it's our skill, it's what we're good at, it's what we're trained to do. You know, it's what we've actually put a lot of time and effort learning about, so that we can actually have an advantage, or you know, be better than other people at. And it's the same idea. You know, a builder is obviously going to be better at building something than I am. He's not taking advantage of me when you know, he's charging me for the service. I genuinely want to pay for him to complete the service because I'm no good at it. Now, my property trader friend actually brought the property from Harcourt, knowingly it was actually underpriced, but he didn't know how much it was actually underpriced for. And when he actually listed it with Bailey's, he actually fetched $400,000 more than he purchased it for. And I think it was, from memory, he purchased it for about 900 or odd thousand, I think it was, for the commercial building. And when he sold it through Bailey's, he sold it for about $1.3 million. And all that took place within about a 2 to 3 month period. And I know it seems astronomical to be able to earn $400,000 in a span of 3 months' time, but you know, people are doing these sorts of deals all the time. You know, even in certain residential deals, I've seen people make, you know, huge six-figure sums. So it's not just commercial, it's not just residential. Both can be a very profitable venture. But just as a note, commercial buildings do normally cost a little more. And you know, it's something you guys can definitely look into once you've really understand how residential property works, and really understand that knowledge before you can shift it into a different area of real estate. So you know, that's just a few tips for you guys when you are out trawling on these websites, and you don't want to discount any agencies. Also, you know, very boutique agencies might not have the biggest marketing budget, and they might be doing, you know, advertising the properties in different ways. And, you know, you might actually be able to get a better deal because they don't have as much of marketing budget as some of the bigger agencies, or have that experience in marketing as well. So, you know, keep that in mind, and online resources is an awesome method to actually gain deals. And, you know, as I mentioned before, I actually know property traders that solely just use online mediums and real estate agents to get deals. And, you know, they don't work with private vendors, they don't use any paid advertising at all, and they're still able to make 6 to 7 figures a year. So I highly recommend it, and start by just kind of trawling an hour a day if you can, or whatever time you actually have, just to kind of get that discipline in, and you know, it almost becomes a habit. You know, you do have to put in the work if you want to be making figures like, you know, 400,000 within 3 months. You are going to have to actually do some work and actually trawl and look at properties online. But it all does pay off, because, you know, if you're able to land, you know, even just one deal at that 400K mark, it all becomes worth it, because 3 months of work, even if you're working, you know, 8 hours a day, you know, I'd do that any day over working the 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, only to be able to earn, $50,000 a year on a salary job. So, keep that in mind. Don't discount the online medium. It's an awesome, powerful tool, and it really can make you a lot of money. Another really good medium on how you can find deals and gather leads from real estate agents is actually going to actual open homes and networking with people. And there's no better way than actually to meet someone face to face. It allows you to build a connection, and it actually segments you as the authority because you're handing out business cards and explaining what you do to people. And of course, you need to ask at all times, when given the opportunity, ask if there's any properties that actually suit your criteria. And although you're going to an open home with the listing agent showing you that particular property, once you explain what you do, surprisingly, they have all these other properties up their sleeves that they say, well, this would actually fit you. No one's actually looked at this one because it's quite run down. You like do up, so why don't you have a look at this one? So you don't ask, you don't get. And I want you guys to actually use this method in the beginning to learn about the process just with working with agents, as well as using it to look at property and understanding the ins and outs, and getting the real estate agent to kind of guide you through the process of when you're actually looking at the properties as well. And again, you can actually automate this as well. Once you have a deal or two under your belt, you can actually outsource this open home networking stuff to someone else that goes out and looks at all these different properties and reports back on your behalf. And it's the same idea as well with the trawling. Once you actually set out your criteria and your budget, once you have some money under your belt from doing 1 or 2 deals, you can actually hire people to say, well, this is my criteria. Can you actually do all this trawling for me and send me the properties that actually fit into this criteria? So there's all different ways where you can actually leverage the skill or the times of others, so you can actually focus on doing the important stuff or going to meetings with hot vendors and looking at deals that you can turn a good profit on. So guys, I just want to share something with you on this slide, and basically that's deals are found in conversation. And why that is because we're humans, and humans are social beings. And without asking, you'll never know. And the only way you can ask is actually by being in conversation with other people. And I mean, not just with real estate agents, but in everyday life. And it actually applies both with real estate agents and in private deal finding. And I actually want to just take a second or take a couple of minutes to share a story with you guys about the barber that actually cuts my hair. So the barber that cuts my hair, he's a very talkative person. He's a great conversationalist, and he's always asking me what I do for business or what I've been up to, if I've bought any new properties, and he really understands the ins and outs of my life. And he understands that for all his customers as well. And that to me shows that he's actually a great businessman as well, because he connects and really understands his clients. So one day there was actually a 16-year-old kid that normally goes and gets his haircut at the barber. And my barber actually, just had the general small talk with him and said, what's up? Is anything new? Are there any changes going on in your life? And the 16-year-old actually came in with his auntie at the time, and the auntie that looked after the 16-year-old was also sitting in the waiting room, waiting for her I think niece to get his haircut, nephew to finish his haircut. And basically the 16-year-old kid was actually saying, well, my auntie's actually going through some difficulty because she wants to sell a house because her family overseas is actually ill and they don't have a lot of time left. And, she really needs it sold so she can get going, and the sooner the better. And, the barber was actually very savvy. He's actually a property investor himself as well. And we talk a lot about property, and he said, well, I'm in the market at looking at buying another investment property. Can I maybe have a chat to your aunt? And, after the haircut, he went over and introduced himself to the aunt and said, what is it that you need? What are you looking for about your property? Are you wanting to sell it very quickly, or what's happened? What's happened with your family? The 16-year-old kid mentioned that you're wanting to go back overseas very quickly. And she confirmed everything was true and said, yes, it is true. I do want to go back overseas, and ideally I wish it'd be better if the property was sold yesterday. And with the urgency and speed of the sale, basically they came to a negotiation that You know, they perceived the value of the property was to be worth about 500,000. You know, I'm just going to kind of make up some numbers here because I can't remember the full amount of numbers, but I do know how much equity or roughly how much the barber made because he did tell me after. And basically, you know, they agreed on a figure. A market valuation was about 500,000. However, given the sense of urgency on how quickly the vendor needed to sell, the barber said, well, would you consider if I would buy it off you today and have all the money across to you within, you know, a week? Because I understand how quickly you need to go overseas and visit your family. You know, would you consider selling it to me for 450,000? And she said, you know what? Without the commission fees involved, and given that you know you've always cut my nephew's hair, and you know, given the circumstance, yes, I'd happily accept 450. That's not an issue. And not only that, not only did he make 50,000 in that week, and it was a very good week for him. Not only that, the aunt actually decided to sell her car as well, which at the time I think it was some Mercedes kind of truck or something like that, in that nature. And again, I think it got valued, the car itself was valued around kind of 50-odd thousand, or she had only bought it not too long ago and is still in very tidy condition. And, you know, without asking, the barber would never get. But he asked, is there anything else that you're looking to sell, given that you're wanting to move overseas? And the auntie actually said, well, you know, I need to get rid of my car, so is that something you're wanting to buy as well? And he said, well, how much? And she, you know, she had a figure in mind. She knew that, you know, she wanted to sell it quickly. She needed to sell it a little bit cheaper. And, you know, I think in her mind, she wanted kind of around 40-odd thousand. And after a bit of back and forth negotiation, the barber actually bought the car as well for 30,000. So not only did he gain about $20,000 worth in savings for the car, he also made 50,000 on the property. So in about a week's time, because he was able to connect and have conversations with these clients of his, as well as asking if there was anything else she needed to sell, in 1 week, he made $70,000, and he's not a full-time property trader. He's not a full-time investor. He's a full-time barber. He runs his own barber business, but he was able to make $70,000 in 1 week, all because he was a great conversationalist and he asked. So that's what I highly encourage, guys, is wherever you get the opportunity, introduce yourself to people and tell them what you do. And you know, it's been the case that I've found buyers this way as well. You know, I was just at the casino the other month, where I was out on a night with some friends, and we stopped by, and I remember talking to one of the car dealers, and I mentioned what I was doing, because she asked, you know, what I do for work. So I told her, and she said, oh, great, because me and my partner are actually pre-approved, and we're looking for a house in this budget range. And I actually took her details, and, you know, that works really well, because should I actually have a property in her price range, I can easily send her an email, and if it's a property she actually likes, well, guess what? I found a buyer. And I don't even need to sell it through an agent, because I've already got my buyer, right? So deals are found in conversation, both sellers and buyers alike. So I highly encourage to be social with the people around you, and when the opportunity presents itself, do share what you do, and you never know what's going to come from that conversation. Just like the barber, just like myself, you know, the more you talk to people, it's actually working. You know, when you talk and share the stuff with other people, you know, it's a form of work. You're networking. So they don't call it networking for no reason, because you are actually out there building your net, and you're working by building your net. So I encourage you guys to do this, and you'll never know what will actually result from it if you don't try it yourself. So we've covered all the mediums to get more deals and leads through the source of real estate agents, and next we're going to be covering the different mediums on how you can obtain deals through private sellers. And I'll briefly just kind of read out the main bullet points, and we'll go over each of these different mediums in a bit more detail. But firstly, you can do signs, there's direct mails, there's electronic direct mails, which is EDMs, there's networking, and again, there's a whole bunch of online mediums, such as trademe.co.nz, homesale.co.nz, which is a website purely for private sellers. There's other private selling websites as well that you can search for on Google. There's certain property finding services that you can actually connect with as well. There's Facebook advertising that you can start advertising and gain more leads for people that are wanting to sell property. There's having your own company and personal website where people can come out and seek you should they want to sell. And there's other forms of online advertising such as Google advertising as well that can help you gain more leads and more deals through private sellers. So the first method and the first medium we'll be looking at when getting deals through private sellers is, the basics of having a sign. And the benefits of this is it's very low cost. You can self-make it just by using spray paint and a staple gun. And the main things to keep in mind is having a very readable font size, so it's very large font size, and colors are important as well. You want to have clear contact information and a call to action, and clear, concise ad text explaining what you do. So, this is a very low cost method that you guys can go out and do in any city that you're working in, and you can go out and put out some signs in areas where there's some high traffic, with high foot traffic or high actual vehicle traffic as well. Keep in mind that you are putting it on places where you're allowed to, and you're not just putting your branding and signs everywhere on council property and stuff like that. Also, I've actually approached a lot of homeowners and tenants living at certain properties where their properties are placed on an intersection, and you'll be surprised. Again, you don't ask, you don't get. And 5 out of the 10 times when you go ask these homeowners or tenants living at the property if you can put a sign on their property, well, guess what? They actually say yes, and it's actually at no cost 5 out of the 10 times. Now the other 5 is you do have to incentivize the people that are allowing you to put some signs on their properties. And it could be the case of a couple of lunch vouchers or a $20 lunch voucher and stuff like that. So really, really basic stuff, but signs do work. They visually catch your eye, and should people want to sell, they're going to actually take down that number. And I myself, personally do that a lot of the times when I'm driving and I see a sign for a certain painter or something, and it just so happens on that week we've just taken on a property and we need a painter or an extra painter to help out. And I'll pull over and I'll actually take that number down and I'll call them. And I imagine it's the same for some of you guys as well. So signs do work because all you need is that 1 or 2 buyers that actually call you up and sell their property to you, and you could make that $50,000 or $100,000. And I personally know that signs do work because we've done plenty of deals through people calling us through signs and wanting us to come out and actually help them out in the process of selling. And we've made some healthy profit margins just through the investment of signs. So the next medium we're going to be covering is direct mail. And this can be a medium that's very powerful because it allows for personalized targeting. And just imagine if you get a piece of mail delivered with your name on it to your address, you're definitely going to open that piece of mail and see what's inside because it's personally delivered to you. And basically, direct mail can help increase the phone calls and increase all the leads coming in for all the private sellers wanting to sell. But you do have to create your own database of names and addresses from potential vendors. And to do that, you can create certain Facebook campaigns where you can collect seller information, and certain word of mouth campaigns where you've done business with other people and they're sharing your information across and they're contacting you. And what you want to do is you want to store all that information when you're advertising or in any other medium when you're getting sellers' names and addresses, because you can actually use that and send personal direct mail out that they'll open and contact you. So what you want to do on a piece of mail is there certain information you want to highlight. So firstly, you want to highlight what it is you do and how you can benefit the reader, i.e. the vendor. Remember on week 2 we've gone over features and benefit. This is the time to use it in a piece of mail because you can actually highlight the features of your offering as well as the direct benefits to the reader or the vendor. You want to have the correct information for your reader to contact you on. I've heard of really funny stories where people starting off on direct mail have actually forgot to put contact information altogether, and the vendor trying to reach out has nowhere to actually contact the purchaser on. So you want to definitely make sure you have the right contact information, i.e. your phone number or an email or a website that they can land on where they can also fill out their information, and that allows you to actually go back and call the vendor so you can position a time for a meeting and see the property. Now, there are other ways to get a database, so I've heard. I do realize a few other property traders may kind of purchase data from certain companies. I myself haven't done it myself because I generate enough leads through just the online mediums I use myself. But you know, it can be a powerful way where you can get some leads and possibly get some deals from as well. So I mean, you know, utilize this, but this form of marketing will require cost. You know, by all means, you are able to actually handwrite this information if you so wish to do so. And even your local real estate agent that's part of your power team, he may be able to provide you with certain information of certain owners on a particular street. But that's something you're going to have to liaise with the real estate agents to see if they're willing to help you out on that basis. But yeah, I mean, you know, personalized mail does work depending on whether you're writing it yourself and building your database on your own. It can be a costly exercise or it can be a free exercise. But of course, you know, if you're going to opt for the free route, you are limited to how many letters you can write. Of course, if you're paying for the advertising and paying for the direct mail to scale out, you can reach a lot more people quicker. But of course, this does come at a cost. Now, I just want to share a quote that I found a long time ago, and it was by a guy called C. Moser. I'm not sure who that person actually is, but you know, this quote really stuck with me, and I think it's a true testament to the type of business that we're in and how we advertise. So, you know, the average person actually needs to visually or verbally engage 7 to 9 times with a brand before the brain triggers a need to take action. So that's why it's so important, guys, to have a wide range of different mediums when you are kind of branding yourself out there. You know, you've got the signs out there. You might send a piece of direct mail. They might see you on the online space through Facebook, and you know, they're seeing, you know, if they see you on all those 3 different channels, they've already actually been in contact or engaged with your brand 3 times. And if the frequency is a lot higher, so that you have more signs and more Facebook advertising going out, then they're going to be able to see your brand 7 to 9 times, and at which point they're more likely to actually engage and give you guys a call should they be ready to sell. So it's important to constantly brand yourself out there, and the more times you are in front of people, the higher the chance they'll actually take action and actually use your services. So that's really important to keep in mind. So next we're going to talk about electronic direct mail, and that's very similar to the direct mail, which is a physical piece of mail, but of course with electronic direct mail, we don't physically have to send pieces of mail out, which can be a lot more cost effective. And again, this is a great way to get in contact with private sellers if you've already built up a database by running your own advertising campaigns via Facebook or through Google and etc. And it can be a very low cost solution. And how you can actually utilize the electronic direct mail is you can use certain online tools such as MailChimp, which is stuff that we use as well. And it helps automate the whole process because you can input all your database of all the emails that you have, as well as all the names. And MailChimp actually allows you to send all that mail all at once, but it'll all be personalized to the individual's name. And again, what you want to do on this electronic direct mail is very similar to what you would want to do on a physical piece of direct mail. And again, that's highlight what it is you do, how you can benefit the reader, i.e. the vendor, and have the correct contact information for the reader to contact you on. And again, like I said, you want to collect this information by running your own advertising campaigns, and or you know, you may want to possibly purchase data from certain companies. But if you are going down this route, you will have to do some research on your own, because I personally have not done this as of yet. So again, we're going to cover networking, and regardless if you're buying or wanting to do deals through a real estate agent or through private sellers, networking is gold. And you know, the ways you can network is go to property investing events. There's certain business events, there's Facebook groups and investor groups, and you want to talk about what you do in everyday conversation. So networking is really beneficial because first off, it's free. And I can definitely say this works because I actually brought 2 deals off an investor going down this route through the networking process. And you know, he actually had five properties and wanted to sell it. He wanted to offload a couple very quickly because he was just fed up dealing with the tenants. So you know, when I proposed buying 2 off him, he actually gave me a really good price, and he was prepared to do so because firstly, there were no agent fees involved, and secondly, he didn't want to be involved in actually kicking the tenants out or anything in regards to that property. So he wanted me to do all the dirty work basically, and if I was prepared to do that, he was able to substantially lower the price for me, allowing me to have a healthy profit margin. And when I bought the 2 properties off him, yes, I had to do the dirty work and kind of give the tenants the bad news, which is also, which is also always a difficult thing to do in our business. But at the end of the day, I know that if I'm taking on these properties or if I'm selling it to another investor, I know that they're actually going to renovate the property and bring the property to a much higher standard than where it is at currently. And I was actually shocked when I walked into these 2 properties because they're in terrible, terrible condition. And it's the case of the landlord neglecting the property and not actually doing anything about it. So I think it was actually a great move that he decided to sell it, not only because I made a healthy profit from it, because equally the next tenants that are going to be living in that property are going to have a much better home to live in. And I actually felt bad that the tenants were living in a property that was so neglected by the landlord. But at the end of the day, I was able to turn over $50,000 each on both of those properties because the landlord didn't want to do certain things to the property or give the tenants the bad news. And I actually met him at a networking event through a property investing event, and that's how a lot of the times the deals are done, because I'm always constantly talking about what I do in everyday conversation. So online mediums and websites to trawl through actually appears both on finding deals through real estate agents and through private sellers. And when you're looking at deals through private sellers, there's actually a couple of more websites you can look at, such as homesale.co.nz, but equally there are a lot of private sellers that are listed through Trade Me as well. Similar to buying through an agent, you can look at these websites to see who's private selling, and you can even type in the keyword private to connect with vendors that are selling privately, and you can actually filter out all the listings that have agents attached to it. So it might pay, or you might want to spend a day just talking with private vendors, and you might want to spend another day just talking with real estate agents, and you want to kind of segment your time so that you are building the pillars of both these different sources. And again, when I reach out to these private sellers, keep in mind though, the only difference here is that they've advertised their property, and there are all these other people that can also access Trade Me and realestate.co.nz that are also looking at the same property. So sometimes you do have to act a lot faster when it comes to private sellers that have listed online versus private sellers that have actually contacted you out of their own means, or if you've actually reached out to them via direct mail or via online methods. So that's something to keep in mind. You may have to act a little bit quicker because the property listed privately on the open forum on Trade Me and stuff like that is also available for everyone else to view as well. So the next online medium we're going to be talking about is property finding services. Now, property finders most often are still licensed real estate agents. However, they tend to have a wider range of resources when it comes to getting deals and may not be area specific. And what I've found is property finders generally work more with investors and more with property traders as well. So it's definitely a space that we're involved in. Normally they do charge a fee on top of your purchase price, and all you guys have to make sure is, as long as the numbers still work on top of the purchase price, on top of the fee that they've charged, then that's all you have to worry about to ensure you're still making a profit on the other end. Now, I know that a bunch of traders that I've actually met have met me through property finding services. So it would be the case that I would have listed a property with the property finding service, and they would have connected me with the buyer. And now that I've met the actual buyer, I've realized he's an actual trader, and I've added him directly to my buyer's base, and I can connect to him directly next time without having the property finding service kind of clip the ticket in between. Definitely though, when I do list a property here and they find another buyer for it, often it's the case that the end buyer can also find another buyer they want to sell it to, maybe a home buyer or another investor. But definitely a property finding service or property finding companies can help when you are starting off and wanting to look for deals. Just specific with your criteria. Tell them that you're a trader, you are looking for properties that will make you X% margin, or you only look at deals where you can definitely make this amount as a margin, and any properties that come across their tables that fit that bill, the agents will actually reach out to you. Well, the property finders that are licensed agents will reach out to you. So again, it's just another pillar that you want to build up, and very similar to a buyer's agent, where they'll be sending you deals once they think the deal will actually benefit you and fits into your criteria. So look into this, and I highly recommend it, especially when you're first starting out. So another really good online medium is by using Facebook advertising, and that's definitely something we use to generate more leads, and we also use our direct mail campaign as associated with the Facebook advertising campaign as well. The reason why is there's a huge amount of homeowners on Facebook, and you can use specific targeting to reach these people as well. And you really want to be using the Facebook advertising as a lead generation tool. If the vendor doesn't sell today, at least you've still collected the information and you can still reach out at a later stage. I often tend to think that everyone is a qualified seller. It all depends on when though. If they're not ready to sell this year, it may be the case they're ready to sell next year. If they're not ready to sell next year, it could be 2 years from now. Then at least you have the information, and if you are touching base every so often by using things like MailChimp on electronic direct mail or direct mail, eventually they're going to come over and you're going to be able to purchase their property and turn around and actually realize profits on the other end. So here's an example of what a Facebook advertisement would look like. So the left here is what you would actually see on your Facebook newsfeed, and the landing page it takes you to is basically a section where they can fill out their first, last name, address, email address, and phone number. And basically, I can even add things like, reason for appraisal, or, time frame that you're looking at possibly selling. And basically, it gives the option for the user to select a certain time frame if they are wanting to sell within the next 3 to 6 months, or if it's the next 1 to 2 years, or if it's 2 to 5 years. And when I give the viewer the option, or the people clicking into the ad these options, basically I can then filter out the leads accordingly and put aside all the leads that don't need to be contacted until a year's time from now. And I don't want to be wasting my budget just by throwing this data away, because it's still really valuable stuff. So rather than throwing it away, all I'm doing is segmenting it into certain periods of the year where I should make contact with this group of people, or the people that have actually indicated they want to sell within the next 1 or 2 months. Well, guess what? I'm going to be contacting them very quickly to ensure that I can present my offering and see if it's something that they're looking for. Now, this Facebook advertising stuff isn't too hard to figure out, and when I first kind of started doing the Facebook advertising stuff, I did do it myself. However, if you aren't the most technical person, it may pay to hire someone else to do it if it's within your budget, and if you want to expand your marketing services to paid services. Again, when you're starting off, you don't really need to do this stuff to get deals. As I mentioned, I know property traders that purely only work with real estate agents and just look online, and they're still able to make an absolute fortune. But of course, if you want to automate the process and have more inquiries and more leads, and have the machine working like clockwork, then that's something you can definitely do once you have a bit of money under your belt, and you can start outsourcing and continue to grow that portion of your business as well. Another good online medium to get more leads and private sellers contacting you is actually having a personal website. And not only does it set you as an authority and a place to explain your services, it actually directs all your efforts to an actual landing page through your Facebook advertising and so forth. Again, when you're actually sending out EDMs or direct mails or anything like that, even when you are working with real estate agents as well, it shows that you're more professional and serious about what you do, and actually shows the agents that it shows the agents that they want to actually work with you because you're so serious by having a website. If you didn't even have a landing page and you just want to go out to these open home and say, well, I do this. Well, where's the proof? Where's the proof that you do it? Where's the website? Where's all the actual evidence to show that you're serious about your business? So this definitely helps, and it also helps with your online advertising when you're wanting it to direct on a certain landing page as well. Not only does it do that, it also allows people that are actively looking for your services, and there are so many people that are actively looking just to sell to private buyers because they don't like agents, or they've had a bad experience in the past, or they just want to sell it quickly, or they appreciate the ease and the non-hassle involved with selling directly to a private buyer. And it allows a place for people to look up online on Google to actually find your services and get in contact. And I consider those people a hot seller, a very warm lead, because they've actually sought my services out. I haven't actually reached out to them. And the great thing about that is it can actually be a free source of traffic or a free source of leads coming into you if you have SEO ranked your website, meaning search engine optimization. So again, I don't want to be too technical because this whole Property Academy course is really based around property. So if you are wanting more advanced things like a website to be on the top of Google, then it's something you want to outsource or work with someone more technical that can help you achieve these things for your website. So on this slide here, guys, it's just an example of what a SEO ranked website would look like. There's no advertising for these websites to actually appear, and when you write the search term in Google and these websites appear, it's actually the efforts of an IT professional, either in-house for that company or an outsourced IT professional, that has actually tweaked the workings of the website so that Google actually picks it up when people are writing in certain key phrases. And of course, that effort, the technical effort is often paid, or someone actually being really good in doing it themselves. But once it's all done and you're already ranked in Google, the great thing about that is when people are searching for your services and your website is SEO ranked for that term, your website will automatically appear on the top, or maybe on that front page, and that allows you to be it allows you to present yourself as an offering or as an option when people are actually looking for your services. And most people tend to actually click on the first or second link. So if you can actually get your website ranked that high, then it just means that there's a higher chance of those hot leads coming in, and it pays itself off because over time you only have to invest in all that SEO in the very beginning, and after it's all done, you're always kind of going to sit in that rank until another company tries to overtake your rank, at which point you're going to have to spend more money to outrank the other competitors as well. So again, something more technical, so I'm not going to cover it in too much detail, but if it's something that you guys are looking at wanting to do, you do have to put some money aside to do this. So it's something more advanced for what I would recommend once you get 1 or 2 deals under your belt. So guys, there are a couple of extra hacks I just want to go over so that no money is actually left on the table. And one really easy method is with the leads that are coming in, you want to reach out to the leads every now and again and actually find out from the vendors that, is it okay for me to give you another call in a few weeks' time or a few months' time? Because you never know when their circumstances are going to change. And I've actually gotten so many deals by applying the same method, just by keeping in contact with people and asking, I understand you don't want to sell right now, but is it something that you'd be looking at sometime in the next few months or sometime within the next 6 months? And if they say yes, I go, well, great. Can I actually give you a call every other month just to touch base and see where things are at and if anything's actually changed? And I'm pretty sure every single time that I've actually asked that, the person on the other end, if they do have a genuine interest in selling, they say, well, of course, there's no problem. So feel free to reach out and we can have another chat then. And that's actually going to allow you to pick up a few extra deals just by doing that, because there's no point going out and trying to create deals from new leads. Of course, that's very important, but you also want to maximize from what leads you already have, and that's a very important part of the business as well. And the second point, another extra hack I want to tell you guys is that for the leads that come in and they're actually looking for top dollar, they're wanting sometimes even above market price. Well, what I do with that is I actually connect a real estate agent up with those people, and I ask them and say, well, it's something that I can't buy because at that price range it just doesn't work for my business. But if you are genuinely interested in selling, I've got a great real estate agent friend that I can refer you to, and maybe he can come out and see you and see what he can do. And a lot of the times a real estate agent will go out there, have a meeting, pitch the person, and very often they'll actually end up closing the client and getting a listing out of it. And that's very good for our business, because if the real estate agent can actually go out and get a listing, you've actually helped the real estate agent out earn thousands and thousands of dollars worth of commission, but equally you've helped out a client of yours that didn't end up using our service, but still actually genuinely wants their house sold. So you've actually helped someone else out as well as the real estate agent. And what you want to do is you want the real estate agent to pay you a referral fee. That referral fee will actually help cover your running costs for the business. And you know, the referral fee differs from each agency, but I work on a minimum of $2,500 from the real estate agents that I work with, and they give me a referral fee of $2,500 once they successfully sell the property. And you'll find out that once you do one deal, the real estate agents are going to constantly ring you and saying, well, where's the next lead? Where's the next lead? Where's the next listing? And you can actually work together with the agent and say, well, you know, if you want a hot lead or another listing that is going to help you make $10,000, $20,000, I'm going to have to get something back from you. You tell me a property that's worth buying, that you've seen listed on the market that isn't selling with another agent, or you know that I can add some good value on it and make money on the other end, then I'll constantly provide you these leads and keep you happy. So it can work in both ways, and that's actually how I've built a lot of business from real estate agents, by actually helping them out, but equally I'm the person that they're first thinking of, because I've actually given them so many leads and helped them make money that they equally want to help me out by providing me certain deals that's going to fit into my criteria, and then I can trade back on the open market after touching up, or even if I just buy it really, really well, then I blast it out either to my database or sell it back on the open market myself, or through another real estate agent. So those are some of the extra hacks, and what I'll actually cover in week 6, where we talk about scaling and kind of growing the business even further. I'll actually talk to you about using certain tools, certain automation tools and delegation tools that can actually help kind of keep this machine running, where you can get all these leads coming in, and it makes the whole organization process a lot easier as well, by using things like a CRM tool, or having things like an 0800 number and stuff like that. So more to come, and we'll be talking more about these extra hacks and elaborating on it further in week 6, where we talk about scaling the business. So on the slide here, guys, I just want to take a moment to talk about ethics and finding the deal ethically. We can't always control who the ads are going out to, so it's important to act ethically at all times and accordingly to the situation. So when we're doing these ads on Facebook or on Google and things of this nature, unfortunately, there's no specific targeting that we can choose only to target new homeowners or older homeowners, or young homeowners or old homeowners. There's no kind of targeting metrics that we can actually apply. So when these ads are going out everywhere, I just want to make a note that there are certain vendors you should be extra careful with. And these are the elderly, these are the non-English speaking vendors, and disabled or mentally ill. Now, at times, these vendors are still wanting to really sell their home. And, I've been in the situation where the elderly have actually sought my service out, and they do really want to sell their home for whatever their personal reasons are. And I know that I mentioned very early on, guys, that the 3 things you need to know to make the property trading business a success is finding and evaluating the deal, structuring and settling the deal, and offloading the deal. But actually, even before offloading, or during offloading or after offloading, there's actually a step 4, which is consolidating. And consolidate basically means that everyone is on the same page, understands the process, understands the outcome, and everyone agrees on what's going to happen moving forward. So the reason why I've put that there is because I've personally had to deal with certain vendors that have had seller's remorse. So despite being on the same page when we're signing the contract and understanding all the process, before we get to the settlement stage, which can be a month away or a couple of months away depending on whatever settlement that we've chosen, during that process the vendors have changed their minds or had seller's remorse. And we all have it. We've all been been in the circumstances of seller's remorse or buyer's remorse, and it could be the case that we sold a car or sold a pair of shoes where we go, what, I actually feel really bad about selling that. I wish I didn't sell it. Same idea with buying something. We've all had buyer's remorse where we've gone out to the mall and someone's actually convinced us to buy something we absolutely don't need. You know, my parents are actually a really good example of this, because they're really easily sold to when they're watching infomercials or when they go out to a mall and there's a sales rep that's probably paid via commission, and they're out selling, you know, massage chairs and stuff like that. And you know, my parents would actually buy the product and take it home, maybe use it once and never ever use it again. And that's buyer's remorse. It's very similar to seller's remorse as well. It's regretting that decision of you know, taking that transaction on. So, you know, in this instance, what you want to do is, if the elderly or non-English speaking or etc. are actually approaching you and really do have a genuine interest in selling the property, you just want to make sure that you're kind of handling the situation properly by getting a lawyer involved, so that there is no miscommunication. And you know, I've actually been scrutinized you know, by one or two vendors because of their seller's remorse and them changing their own mind, you know, of not wanting to go ahead. But unfortunately, because I didn't get a lawyer involved beforehand and they are the elderly, it seems like I've taken advantage when it's definitely not the case. So, you know, I've been a part of so many deals. I've been a part of over 100 deals, you know, in the span of the time frame I've been doing property trading. And you know, it was bound to happen that you're going to get one or two upset clients that, you know, have changed their minds or don't want to go ahead with your service. And, you know, you want to address the situation, you know, to the best outcome possible, that both parties walk away satisfied. But to prevent that, what you want to do is get a lawyer involved if they do genuinely want to get in contact with you and take on your service, because it's not worth the hassle if it goes sour, and you definitely don't want to deal with all the drama involved and all the lawyers or the fees or the delays, because your time is a lot better spent just dealing with people that actually want to use your service. So I suppose, in essence, to sum it up in short, you don't want to sell to the unsellable, or you don't want to sell to the people that shouldn't be sold to, and you're better off working with people that actually have a genuine interest in using your service and will actually talk good about your service to their friends and family and spread, you know, the good words about your business. And, you know, 90% or 95% of my clients fit into this range where they love working with us. And I've actually worked with a vendor that had more than one property, and she came back to us and wanted to sell her property to us again. But unfortunately, you get the one or two odd customers, if you've been in business this long, that are unhappy with your service. And, you know, it's the same with all the big brands, Starbucks and McDonald's and stuff like that. You know, you try to do your best to please everyone, but unfortunately, there's still going to be, you know, a handful of people that are going to find a reason on why they don't like working with you or why they've changed their mind. And that's just business. It's something that you guys will have to just deal with when it comes up at the time. So just to sum up finding the deal, I want to cover a list of questions that you should be asking when it comes time to deal with actual private vendors, as well as real estate agents as well. And you want to ask the real estate agents why the vendors are selling, or you know, the reasoning or motivation behind listing the property. And these are the questions you want to get answered, so you can have more leverage and figure out a solution that actually works for the vendor. So the questions are as follows: why are you selling? Why are they selling? Have you bought a new property already, or what are you planning to do with the money? Are you moving overseas? How quickly do you want it sold by? Is there any other terms that would make it more favorable for you? E.g., would you like to rent it back for a short period of time? Is that something that you're after? Do you wish to buy it back at a later stage? Is there any unconsented works that don't appear on the limb? Is there any issues about the property I should know about? You know, all these questions are very powerful because it plays on leverage. And if you find out that, for example, they have already bought a new property and they can't handle having two mortgages, well, you know, it gives you leverage to actually work with the vendor and say, I can come up with a offer very quickly for you and get the money over to you, but you also have to help me out because I'm able to do this and resolve your issue of having two mortgages. You're going to have to discount the price a little bit further for me. Same idea with that last one's really good. It's a really good question to ask. Is there any issues about the property I should know about? Now, this question is ideal because the vendor's perception of problems might be a lot bigger than what you might think. And they might even have a quote. So for example, they might think that the renovation of the bathroom, because there's a hole on the floor, is going to cost, you know, upwards of $30,000. and they may even have a plumber or a bathroom renovation person come out and actually quote 30,000 to them, and that's how they've got the number. But in terms of your view, you know that your tradies can actually fix this whole thing up for 10 grand. So that question allows you leverage, because when you ask, is there any issues about the property I should know about, the vendor's going to be telling their perspective of what the issues are. And if they feel that the renovation's actually going to cost a lot more, you're not, who are you to tell them otherwise and say, you're wrong, it's not actually going to cost 30 grand, it's only going to cost 10 grand. You're just going to have to nod your head and agree with them and say, okay, let's take that into consideration. And you can actually leverage that off the price by saying, well, the property needs to needs the bathroom to be renovated, and equally, because we're doing a private deal, you're not paying any commission. So would you be able to discount the price by $50,000? Because what your property would be worth, if it was all done correctly and up to scratch with an awesome bathroom, it'd be worth $500,000. Off which the bathroom and the agency fees might be about $50,000. So would you be prepared to sell it to me at $450,000? And that's the leverage that you're going to be using for you to actually seal up a deal and purchase that property for about $450,000. And when you actually go out and get your builders out on site to redo the bathroom, it's only going to cost you 10 grand. Well, guess what? There you go. You've just made 40,000 because you've asked the questions and you've listened for leverage and you've applied it correctly. So always ask these questions when it comes time to looking for the deals. And it applies both for real estate agents as well as private sellers as well.